Do you enjoy music? Does it really matter what type of music you listen to? We're going to talk about that next. Hi, I'm Pastor Dave, and welcome to another episode of Standing Stones Community Church and our podcast. Each week we get to introduce somebody in the church, and you get to meet people in the church, because the church is not a building, the church is people. And this week, I'm excited. I have Micah with me. Micah, thanks for joining us, man. It's nice to have you with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Good
Now, Micah's part of our worship team, so as we get to know you, kind of tell us a little bit about your spiritual journey.
Well, I've always been in a Christian household and Christian family. Grew up knowing God and reading through the Bible, and I've always, I went to church every Sunday, and I ended up going to like I did stuff like Awana and whatnot, and with those, you practice learning verses, tons and tons of verses. My mom always had this thing where we'd do it 5 times, and I'd have to make sure I did 5 times perfect beforehand, and that helped me with memorizing things even later in life.
But I bet those verses are still in there.
Yeah, probably. I don't have the best memory anymore, but they're probably still in there somewhere, locked away. But and as I continued through life, I just kind of kept that same sort of view on Christianity. I always held it close, held my relationship with God close, and but then I ended up going to like a Christian school for a while, up until about, I think, 4th grade, I believe. Okay. And then I started going to public school, but I was still in that Christian mindset. But then I ended up, once I reached high school, things started to kind of dip and fall away for me.
With your personal walk?
Yeah,
gotcha.
yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Not with like the family, but with my personal sort of aspect of it all.
You hit those high school years.
Yeah, but what was it? I began to get into band and stuff, and I fell into this kind of wrong crowd, which kind of led me to doing some bad things, such as I really fell into alcoholism a while, and I really struggled with that for a long time.
This is in high school years then?
Gotcha. Yeah, okay. Well, in high school, I started out with like I smoked and whatnot, and that sort of led me to drinking and keeping up that sort of feeling, staying away from stuff, wanting to get away, and not thinking through my issues and problems.
Did your group of friends shrink at that time, or was it what happened to your friends?
Yeah.
Did they walk down the same path with that?
They I mean they had the same sort of issues, I guess you could say, with it. And I used to have these certain friends who I would hang out with all the time, and we'd play games together and hang out all the time. But then I kind of drifted away from them when I started to do that sort of stuff, and then I started hanging out with more, like only a couple people, like you say. It kind of shrunk down.
Small with that, yeah.
Yeah, so I had that issue for a long time, going up throughout high school, and then sort of past it. And once I turned 21, then I had access to it, so I really got really bad into it, which led me to, I was in like the emergency room a couple times afterwards. It wasn't like too bad. It was more just like my body reacting to consuming so much. But that's what led me eventually to going to a rehab facility, and I was there for about a week. But that was where I had fallen a lot from my view of like God, and not where I disliked God or anything. Sure. It was more like I stopped thinking about it, and I focused more on myself and my desires than But I believe it was the second day that I was there, the second morning. I woke up with these words and numbers going through my head, and I ended up locking into Proverbs and then 23 and 19. So I had like that word and those numbers. So I woke up super early, like nobody was even up, and I went over and I opened up a Bible that they had there, which is nice. They had that access to that. And I looked up Proverbs 19:23, and I'm like, oh, that's all right, not really anything that, sings out to me. And I go to Proverbs 23:19, and those verses related directly to what I was going through in the moment. Like the first line is, "Listen, my child, and be wise. Keep your heart on the right course." And then it talks about, not being with drunkards and gluttons, and it was exactly what I was going through. And there's no other way for me to explain it than like the Holy Spirit spoke to me through my like dreams or just through my soul, and I just woke up and I felt compelled to go and look for that. And
can I interject for a second? So when you're going through this, did your self-worth pay a price for that? Did you not feel like you were worthy, or did you feel, because a lot of times people go through that kind of what you just described, they feel like they get shame almost with that. Did you deal with any of that?
Definitely, yeah, a lot of that, I would say. I definitely felt really weighed down on myself. There were many times where I started to think more about God and what I was doing. I was being so selfish.
Right.
And every night, I would be drinking at night, and I would be thinking about that at the same time. And then it's like I stopped like thinking, it's like, oh, this feels great, this is amazing, into more of like, why am I doing this? And yeah, it just kind of, I think that's what even further led me to like going to rehab and then becoming sober after that.
Wow.
And I've been sober for a long time, over about a year since then. It's been a while.
Well, thanks for sharing that story. That's kind of raw that you're getting to, but I mean, when God gave you that passage, He's letting you know how much He still loves you.
Yeah.
His love never left
exactly.
you. We might leave God, but God never leaves us with that. So. Now, I'm not going to say your age, but you're under 25, right? So, I'm excited to have a young guy, especially who's overcome things like that. And you have talent for music. You have a theater background, and you've taken that background. Now you're on our worship team.
Yeah.
So how have you gone from the theater background? What made you say, hey, I want to be part of the worship team?
Well, I've always wanted to be a part of it. I've always loved music and singing, and I really enjoyed, what the worship team was doing whenever I would go to church. And I've always been like, I'd want to be up there. I want to join with them and do that sort of thing. But when I came here, it all sort of began with like, I started helping out with like the audio stuff, back with the board and making sure everything sounded good. And then, I eventually got asked, it's like they needed an extra voice. And I was like, I suppose I can. It's I had a lot of nerves for it, even though I've done theater. But with this setting, it's a lot different because I'm not playing a character. I'm playing not even playing. I'm being myself, and I'm singing to God and guiding people to do the same.
Right. Well, that's kind of what I want to hit upon, because I love worship. I love the Lord. I'm not a singer, so. But people come to church sometimes and they listen to worship, and I hear comments like, well, I like this song, or why can't we sing these type of songs? Or, music can be something that people get all upset about, what we're singing, who was singing, and so on and so forth. What do you think? I want to hear from a worship singer. Is it more important, the songs that we sing or the heart that we have in worship?
Well, it's definitely more about the meaning behind things and what you're trying to get across, I suppose. Like, it's not about performance.
That's the key
it's
word.
It's about worship. That's why it was so different for me. I went from performing and now I'm worshiping, and it's a very different thing. And it's when you're singing, and you love music and all this sort of stuff, but it shouldn't be focused on oh, I love this song so much, like you said, but more, what is the song that we're singing now? What is the message that it's trying to get across, and how does that relate to me, and how does that relate to my relationship to God?
So it really comes down to the heart issue.
Yes, yeah.
Because we look at it, and again, I'm just taking what I've heard people say in the past. I wish they would sing this song, or I really like that song. It's like, well, the songs, I enjoy, listening to Christian music on radio and so on and so forth, but that's not the worship time for me. We're here to hear a message. We're here to prepare ourselves, our hearts prepared to hear God's word, and it really comes down to the heart more so than the song. And I just want to hear from a worship singer if that agrees. Or
Yeah, there's definitely some songs out there that are really good, and people might enjoy them a lot, and if it kind of fits with what we're doing, it would do well. It's just a matter of what fits with the message that's being said in the sermon, and what kind of ties everything together, what people need to hear, maybe just something to get people active and excited about being in worship.
well, now you kind of hit another. I got a worship guy with me now, so that I can ask some questions I've always wondered with. Okay, how important is it? I try to have my sermons, 6 months to a year out, not in detail, but knowing where I want to go with that, So there's twice a year I kind of get quiet time in between Christmas and New Year's, and then a week in July. I kind of take some quiet time and, Lord, what direction do we need to go? And I try to plan my sermons out. So I may not know the titles or where we're going to be, but I kind of know the book we're going to be in and so on. And I let the worship leaders and the worship team know that I'm going to be, like right now I'm in the Minor Prophets.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be in the book of Amos for a while. How important is it to tie the worship into the message versus just saying this is what the people need to hear right now? It's about the people's heart. So, because I, as a pastor, I don't get upset if I'm going to be preaching on judgment from Amos and you guys are singing about hope, because to me they tie together. So how important is it to try to make the music fit the sermon title on a scale of 1? I mean, is that like vital, or is that a nice thing if it happens? Because I think God brings it all together anyhow.
Yeah, I would say that they should tie together, at least to my perspective. I think that if you have a good message in the sermon that you're trying to get across, and there's a song that relates to that, it kind of like ties it all together, and you're hearing the words, but then now when you're worshiping in the songs and you're doing that sort of thing, it just, you're the one now,
right,
sort of expressing that part of yourself.
Right.
And it sometimes it might be where it kind of doesn't seem like it relates, but I feel like all songs sort of relate together in a way.
Yeah, I see God tied together no matter what with that.
Yeah.
It's amazing when that happens, So, okay, it's with music. And I opened the podcast up by saying, do you enjoy music? And if so, what kind of music do you listen to? Does it matter what kind of music outside of church? Does it matter if we're listening to other things? Or do you think the secular music impacts us in a way? What do you think? How do you think that goes?
I suppose there's a way it sort of depends. Like if you're listening to worship songs here at church, and then you go out and then you're listening to something that's like, praising demons or something like that, like, I don't know, like some hardcore like metal or sort of stuff. Not all metal, but there's certain ones that are definitely like that. It's sort of, it just contradicts your feelings, and when you're listening to music, I find that it ties to your soul, and you're really listening to the words, and that's what gets you excited and gets you to sing along and dance and all that sort of stuff. And if you're listening to something that totally just is the opposite of what you should be focusing on, that can really lead you astray. But there are some things out there. Like I listen to a lot of Broadway musicals, and I'm a really sort of musically inclined sort of thing in terms of plays and sort of stuff. There's a lot out there that might not have sort of a godly message or anything, but it's the way that you look at it, I suppose, and the way that you express yourself with it. Like if I'm listening to something like say Hamilton, for instance, that's a musical that's got a lot of like rap in it, but it's all about like history. It's the history of America, and centered around Hamilton. And there's even a song in there where he's struggling with lust, and he's away from his wife, and he's being tempted in that way. And even in the song, it goes, Lord, show me how to say no to this. That's the whole premise of the song. And in the end, he doesn't say no, but there's certain little aspects that really, they just work and hit you in the soul.
When you look at Isaiah 28 and Ezekiel 14, we know that Satan, when he was in heaven, he had the gift of music, so he sins, he gets kicked out of heaven, doesn't lose his gift, he just now perverts it and uses it against God. I remember the kids, my daughters are older now, but when they were little, they've always listened to worship music in our house because I had a background in Hollywood, so I was in the music, I had music industry around me, and I know what they told me, I know what they said, so when I became a dad, our house kind of listened to worship music. And we have a family of 5, so if we go out to eat, we go to places like Chili, it's too expensive to go someplace, so we do a Chili's, and at Chili's I always had this music playing, it's like the 70s and 80s. At the university, I asked one of my students, I said, she worked at Chili's. I said, do you guys have like CDs or what? She goes, yep, corporate sends us a CD every month and we play it every month. And so the demographics must be those from the 70s and 80s. Anyhow, my girls were 5 or 6 years old, and we listened to nothing but worship music. And we're at Chili's and this song comes on. I hadn't heard, golly, in 3 decades, literally, and I knew all the words to it. And the girls were just shocked. They looked at me, Daddy, why do you know that song? And I go, it's Philippians 4:8. I said, once it gets in, it doesn't get out, And they're like, well, does that song honor God? I go, no, not at all. She goes, well, why do you know the words? And I go, once it gets in, it doesn't get out. I mean, music is powerful.
Yes.
Music is emotional. As you said, it's part of our soul. So how much do we need to protect? I mean, again, Philippians 4:8 is a filter. Don't let anything into your mind that's not pure and lovely and noble and so on and so forth. If you do a word study on those words, what they mean, it's pretty powerful. But when we get outside into the secular world, how do you, again, being, you've gone through some addiction, you recovered from that, you're committed to the Lord, you're a wonderful young man. How do you handle that balance?
It can be trying at times. There's a lot of difficult things that might happen, situations that come up that really, just hit hard. Like, for instance, recently my cat passed away, and he was about, I think, 17 or 18 years old, and he's always been, my buddy. I always, he would sleep in my room a lot, and yeah, when he was gone, I really, really struggled a lot with that sort of thing, and I wanted to really go back into how I used to be with. It's like I just wanted to forget, and I just wanted to be away from everything, but it's when that sort of thing happens, when something is really weighing down upon you, it's good to, for me at least, and probably for a lot of other people, to just turn to God in that moment and pray on it and ask for guidance. Not like a prayer that's like, please, get me out of this situation, but more like what can I do to get through this? Help guide me away from these temptations that I'm feeling. And that's the same sort of thing. Like if I'm listening to music that's very, very hardcore, or if it's like very sad and emotional, then that just leads me down that sadder emotional path.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When I do funerals, I meet with the family and I ask them to pick some songs out. And when I'm actually leading the funeral, I'll tell people, in a time like this, we have a lot of emotions, and many times we can't express our emotions, so we express ourselves through song. And the song we're about to play now, kind of expresses the family's emotion, and it does. If we don't know the word, we don't have the words, but we have a song that speaks how we are with that. That's what I'm saying. I think it's so important that we are careful on how far, not letting our guard down on the music that we play. Now, music, again, attracts people. So how do you use music to get people to church, or to invite people to church, or to share God's love with people? Have you used music as a evangelism tool?
Well, I suppose it depends on the person, I guess. Like, if the person really loves music, like, or maybe a certain type of music, they might not be as interested it's with me. I have a lot of trouble trying to invite somebody to church or anything because I don't want to feel like I'm pushing my ideals on them. But that's just it ties sort of into my social anxiety. I don't want people to feel or not like me or stuff like that. But it's
But can music be a bridge for you for that?
I feel like there's a way that it could, because there's definitely songs out there that are in the style that somebody might enjoy, but it also has a good message behind it. For instance, my grandma once gave me this CD that was about Toby Mac, who's a Christian rapper, and I actually really enjoy his music. I'm not too big into rap, but at the same time, it has a nice beat to it. It has a nice rhythm, everything, but the main part is the words that he's getting across. You know, like not letting these bad things get to you, and you know, even though we may struggle, in the end, we're all sort of the same, and we should, you know, love, praise, and worship God for the things that He's given us. And you know, there's probably some good songs out there that are in the styles that someone might enjoy, and you could show that to them and see like, well, hey, how do you like this song? And maybe that message might be what they needed to hear in that moment.
I'll go back to the mid-90s. I was teaching youth workers at a national conference, and they brought in Newsboys, and Toby Mac was part of that Newsboys group. And they came in, and I was very impressed by them because they bring chaperones with them, so there's no temptation, you know, afterwards. Once a year, they go off on a retreat, and they pay for a speaker to come in, and they spend time with that. And when they write their words, they have people look at it to see, are these theologically correct, and are they uplifting? So, I mean, you listen to the music, and you say, well, I don't like that style, I like that, but they really were the real deal, you know. And I'm assuming that Toby's continued that since he left Newsboys and went on his own. But I was very impressed with the way that he said they were serious about what they sang. They walked the walk. You know, and a lot of times I think musicians don't always do that, and people don't do that, you know. So if you were going to offer advice to somebody who loves music but doesn't, you know, I don't know about the secular stuff, I don't know about the Christian stuff, what would you have any advice on how to help people be drawn closer to God through the gift of music?
I'm not sure. I'm not a big advice giver. No, I'm never good at
Well, how
giving
about
those
you?
types
I mean,
of things.
just kind of share.
I mean, if somebody really wanted to, like, maybe they're interested in you know, what I'm like, or if like for instance for me, if they're like, oh, you know, you're really having a good life, you know, you're enjoying things and you're happy a lot, and it's like, but for me, I've been struggling through this. How do you, like, when you have struggles, how do you get through these things? And it's like, you know, a lot of times for me is music is a way to just really get through that situation. And if somebody is willing to hear about that sort of thing, maybe music is that type of thing. Even if you just put it in the background and you have that kind of playing while you talk.
So do you recommend songs to people? If you know, if I'm down on my, you know, I'm just tired, I'm worn out, would you say, well, go listen to this song? Would you recommend songs? Do you ever do that?
I don't believe I have in the past. I never really know what to look for, but there are times where I have, like, somebody's like, you know, I really like this music, and I know that they're maybe having a hard time, and then I'm like, well, hey, you should listen to this. Check this out. You know, it's a kind of nice piece of music. I really enjoy it. It might help you, you know, a bit through what you're going through, and that might be something that, you know, maybe they'll really enjoy that piece of music, want to listen to more, and lead them down that path.
Yeah, I can see that being a ministry, just kind of saying, hey, listen to this song, hey, listen to that song, because you would know it much better than the average person, because you listen to it so much.
Yeah.
All right, well, this has been enjoyable. This is something we could do for quite a while, but I'm going to let you look at the camera and talk to the person out there who enjoys music, but they like the secular stuff, and they don't know about the Christian stuff, and how important it is to really focus your mind, protect your mind, and just how would you encourage somebody who enjoys music but doesn't know what to do with it?
I would say that even though you might struggle through these times or something might weigh down heavily upon you in the moment, don't let those worries and struggles get to you. Don't listen to things that might even lead you down a darker path. Like I said before, like if something's sad or emotional and you're going through a tough time, don't listen to sad and emotional music, or else it'll make you feel even worse. You'll get even more in your feels. Whereas if you listen to something that really uplifts you and your spirit, it can really help you through that difficult time.
Good words. Good words. I appreciate it. Let me thank you for watching as well. We'd love to have you worship with us. Come and hear Micah as he sings on the worship team. We have service every Sunday at 10:30. It's Standing Stones Community Church here in Northeast Phoenix. We're at 19th and Pinnacle Peak. So we'd love to have you with us. Again, Sunday mornings, 10:30, Standing Stones Community Church, 19th and Pinnacle Peak. So Micah, again, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
We'll be back next week with a brand new podcast. Until then, I pray that everything you say and everything you do glorifies God. God bless you.
Thank you for joining our Standing Stones podcast today. It is our hope that through this podcast, your faith is increased, your spirit is encouraged, and your knowledge of the Word of God is expanded. Don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future content. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please share this podcast with your family and friends, and we look forward to you joining us this Sunday at Standing Stones Community Church. For more information about our church, please visit standingstonescc.org.